Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So this video has been basically 5 months in the making. I initially wanted to make this review a first impressions, but then I figured this game is so short, why don't I just go ahead and make a full review? 5 months later, the time has come. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing Dante's coat from the Devil May Cry series, and that's because I'm finally ready to do my Devil May Cry 5 full review. One of the best parts right off the bat about Devil May Cry 5 that I was excited about from the get-go is just that it's a continuation of the series that we've been waiting for 10 years. Even from playing the initial demo, you could already tell that this game already had the type of over-the-top action that we've come to expect and love from the Devil May Cry series. From the beginning, we have the introduction of a few new characters, namely Nico and V. Nico also is pure perfection. As we learn from Devil May Cry 5 and the manga series, Nico is actually the granddaughter of the woman who built Dante's guns, Ebony and Ivory, which I thought was an awesome addition to the series as a whole, not to mention that she is just bombastic and hilarious throughout. The addition of the character V is also surprisingly smooth. From first glance, I expected him to be sort of a mix of Kylo Ren and JP from Grandma's Boy.
How can he see me?
He ended up being a believable, mysterious, and well fleshed out character that I was surprised to find myself rooting for throughout the entire game. He, like Nico, had his hilarious points too. One of my favorite things ever was just mid-battle having him whip out his V-book and just reciting poetry as a bunch of chaotic battles were going on. When I read that he wasn't going to do any actual battling and instead he kind of let his animal familiars do it for him, I didn't know how that was gonna work and I was honestly worried, but then when I actually started playing it to see how it worked, you're still controlling the animals and in the end you deliver the final blow. It worked surprisingly smoothly. In addition to that, the soundtrack is absolutely outstanding. To be honest, I didn't order the special edition, but at this point I recommend that you do because you can program the soundtrack to play any of the new songs as well as some of the older classics that we've come to love. The new tracks, especially Nero's theme, are absolutely infectious, and you come to love the other ones as well. At first, I didn't really like Dante's theme or V's theme, and now I find myself listening to V's theme all the time when I'm at the gym when I need to get pumped. The battle music is also dynamic. It starts out on the slower part of the song, but then when you start climbing up to S rank, the music starts amping up and getting to a more and more exciting part of it. I thought that was a really cool addition to the game overall, and it was one of the many reasons why you'd want to climb up and really earn that S rank. So what I did first was I listened to the soundtrack before I completed the game, and that honestly created a couple spoilers for me because they had some awesome nostalgic throwbacks to the older games. I gotta say, it's hard to well up to battle music, but I honestly did when I was listening to the special edition soundtrack and tracks like Devils Never Cry came up. Can't help but to be emotional when that happens. Speaking of fights in the game, the battles are so much fun. One of the advantages that Devil May Cry 5 has over some of the previous titles is that you can pick the character that you want to play in certain levels. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, I really took a liking to V, and I liked the way that he was able to fight. It was very intuitive, and I found that it was easy to get to an S rank, whereas surprisingly Nero was hard for me. I'm sure that people feel differently about it, but to me, V was the easiest to play as, followed by Dante, followed by Nero. Which is very strange because in Devil May Cry 4, I thought that Nero was the most fun to play with Dante being a little bit heavier. However, I think that's a testament to how well they were able to integrate Dante into this and how smooth his playing was. I was actually surprised at how much less clunky it was from Devil May Cry 3 or Devil May Cry 4. One critique I have, and honestly this does kind of go throughout the whole series, is that certain areas could be repetitive. However, I have to say that this game has more variety than some of the previous titles. In Devil May Cry 3, for instance, you spent the vast majority of the game in that tower, the Temmin Nigru, whereas this one you have a cityscape, you have sort of the hellscape, you have different varieties of places to go to. Although it's natural in some of the areas that you stay there for so long and get so little variety that it's easy to feel like you can't wait to get out. Now I'm going to move on to the difficulty. Now, previous titles, especially Devil May Cry 1 and 3, they're pretty notorious in terms of difficulty. I found myself in both of those games starting at normal difficulty and thinking I could really get my way through, but it was so difficult that midway I realized that it was too hard for me, so I had to pick easy mode and then just play my first playthrough from easy, then move up to normal, and so on and so forth. I played Bayonetta much the same way. However, with this game, I picked easy kind of expecting that to happen, but I regret it a little bit. I think that easy was a little bit too easy. I do like at least a little bit of a challenge within reason, and I think normal would have given that to be more. So I think that if you do want a game that isn't too overwhelmingly difficult, choose the normal mode. If you want to play more casually and you want to think that maybe you'll beat every boss in the first try, go for easy. For me, I would have wanted to learn their movesets a little more and get to know the bosses a little bit better. In that case, normal would have been a better fit. However, I picked easy, and again, I regret it a little, but that is motivation for me to play again and play on a New Game Plus mode. From this point forward, there's going to be heavy spoilers for the entire game. Even though it's been months since it came out, if you haven't played it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, you can stop the video right now, and that's a good first impressions of the game to go on. Now that it's just us and you don't mind being spoiled, I thought the nostalgia factor of this game couldn't be beaten. We waited just about 10 years for this game to come out, and it did not disappoint. The one character that I think we all hoped would be back definitely was. As we know, Virgil is always looking for more power, and in order to do that, he figured that he had to separate his demon self from his human self. It turns out that V is just the human side of Virgil, the side of him that seeks forgiveness for what he's done. I thought that was super dynamic and a really cool direction to take it in. I think it was fairly easy to guess that V was indeed Virgil from the beginning. However, it was fun nevertheless to really get into his head and get into the human side of him, the side of him that feels empathy and the side of him that seeks forgiveness from some of his previous actions to try to make it right. In the end, though, we know that he ended up wanting to just unify with his old self and become fully Virgil again. And at long last, it's confirmed that Virgil is indeed Nero's dad.
If that's your brother, what happened to V?
He returned to himself. Go home, Nero. This doesn't concern you.
Like hell. I lost my right arm because of him!
This is not your fight. I need to stop him, and that's all that matters.
I'm not gonna let you have all the fun, Dante!
You don't get it.
Let me guess. I'm dead weight? Well, you can
That's
shove
not
it
it,
up.
Nero.
What is it then?
He's your father!
What?
I had the feeling the first time I saw you, but I just wasn't sure. And then I saw how the Yamato reacted. And I was certain. He's your father. Now he needs an ass kicking. But I can't have you go kill your old man.
Exactly that happened and who Nero's mother is wasn't explained, but it was great to have confirmation of that after so many years of speculating. And now we'll move on to some critiques. I'm going to just go ahead and read you exactly how I had written this in my notes. Cons: can't switch Nero's magazine. That's it. So that's one of the few cons that I have, is that Nero, it turns out, he loses his arm early in the game, and you have different prosthetic parts that you can play with that have different skills, which I thought overall was really fun. However, you can't switch which prosthetic piece he's using at any given time, which I found to be really unhelpful. It was a fix that potentially could be a very easy one for the developers, but they just, for one reason or another, didn't go for it. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't particularly like playing as Nero in this game. Another critique that I have is that the ending I found was a little dissatisfying, although it's not necessarily a bad ending. In the end, Dante and Virgil go into hell together, and they end up sealing off the barrier between hell and the human world, and they end up being stuck there so that they can continue fighting for potentially all eternity, or in my case, hopefully only until Devil May Cry 6. Metaphorically, it was a way for them to pass the torch to the newer characters such as Nero and Nico. Although I can't speak for everybody, I definitely speak for myself when I say that I do not want to see the end of Dante or Virgil in this series. I think all of us fell in love with them from the beginning, and I really don't think that we would mind collectively if he were to come back again. One last critique is, although I was super excited to have Lady and Trish back again, I feel that they weren't in the series nearly enough. They fell a little bit flat. Their characters weren't very fleshed out in this one, and we didn't get to see very much of them whatsoever. I think other than Nico, there was really a lack of the strong female characters that we saw in some of the previous titles. To conclude, I think that this was by far the best Devil May Cry game since 3. 3 in the end is still my favorite, but I think that this one was action-packed, fun to play, great plot, and overall what we were expecting and what we had hoped for all of the years in between Devil May Cry 4 and 5. The return of Virgil and the introduction of V, his human side, was super satisfying overall, and the soundtrack was so much fun to listen to. Game mechanics overall were smooth and fun. And in the end, I would give this game a super smokin' stylish review. Oh god, that was so dorky. So what do you guys think? Have you guys played Devil May Cry 5 yet? What did you think of it, and which title is your favorite? I'm really curious because some of my friends said that 5 was by far their favorite, and then I have others who say 1 or 3. So I'm really curious to know that if you've played the whole series, which title do you like best? As always, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my channel in any way, you can give me a like or comment down below. I also have a Patreon that goes as low as $1 a month, so if you did want to support it financially, it is definitely not a requirement whatsoever, but if you'd like to do it, it's an option, and I'll post the link down below for you guys. Thanks again. I hope you guys have the best day or night wherever you are. Bye guys. So, FYI, I'll probably put this in the bloopers. I made this coat for Ginger, my partner, about probably 10 years ago now, and luckily I can fit into it, which is awesome, but we went through, I think, 3 different coats that I made before we settled on this one. It turns out at the beginning I made it with a really bad fabric, and it just didn't sit right, so then I had to remake it all over again for this one. I had a week to make this costume in Lady, and this one took me, I'd say, 5.5 of those days, and then Lady was like a day. So that was really unfortunate, and I regret some of that. But at the same time, this coat, I'm still to this day pretty proud of it, even though I made it a decade ago. So just as an extra, I did want to show you guys the coat because even though it's been 10 years since I made it, I'm still super proud of it, and I am so happy to be able to wear it for this particular video. So this coat was signed by Kyle Hebert. He was one of the voice actors of one of the demons in Devil May Cry 4, which I think is pretty exciting. But even to date, even though it's been 10 years, this is just one of the works that I'm most proud of. I really do like to sew and make costumes, and this is something that no matter how much time goes by, I can't get rid of it because I really love this coat so much. As a fan of Devil May Cry, knowing that you have a cool badass Dante coat in your closet is one of the greatest feelings ever. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. You're probably wondering why this video features this. But for me, V was the easiest, followed by Dante, followed by what's his face. From previous titles, for example, Devil May Cry 1 and 3, well, that was 2. Now there's just I love that I'm wearing the Dante coat. You can't not wear the Dante coat when you're reviewing Devil May Cry because it's awesome. I'm sweating in this coat. Dante, how do you go through hell with this awesome kick-ass coat? Am I in focus? Yes, I am. As I'm like not. As I'm totally blurry, so I can't see shit. Oh yeah, down to the conclusion. In my notes, it says conclusion, best DMC game since 3. And then in tiny little notes, 3 is still my favorite. Doop, 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 doop. Yeah. This is silly.